Swami in his discourse on 14th December 1958 said, "One always seeks happiness by trying to satisfy one's desires. The desire is a bonfire that wants to greater beauty, asking for more fuel." Swami reminds us that true contentment comes from within, not from the endless pursuit of material wealth. Instead, cultivating qualities like truth, righteousness, peace, and love will lead to lasting happiness and financial stability. You, we are in a critical stage where we begin to earn and manage our finances. It is essential to approach these responsibilities with wisdom and foresight. On this very topic, we are honored to have with us today our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. T. Shrikant Bhagvat. Mr. T. Shrikant Bhagvat, serves as Managing Director and Principal Advisor of Hexagon Capital's Advisors Private Limited, which specializes in providing tailored management, wealth management, and financial planning solutions for a diverse variety of high net worth families. Notably, Hexagon has been honored with the Best Independent Financial Advisor Award by the CNBC ABA. Mr. Bhagwat's extensive career includes roles in contract management, corporate finance, investment banking, and real estate development. He's also shown insights in prominent publications such as Forbes, Economic Times, Mint, and many more. Beyond his professional pursuits, Mr. Bhagvat is actively engaged in community service. He is a member at the Founder Institute, which is a renowned technology startup accelerator, and he makes certain research activities as a member of the Shrikant Bhagvat organization. Please join me in welcoming Mr. T. Shrikant Bhagvat.
My humble pranams to our ever-loving, most loving Master, our side. You would have probably seen on television, whenever you have a financial analyst coming onto the screen, there's always a disclaimer. Okay? And I've not lost that habit, so I have a disclaimer too. I want to say that before I begin, whatever I say, whether I attribute it or do not attribute it, the source is him. Nothing is mine, whatever I say today. Sometimes, whatever we have listened to his discourses, we would have read his speeches somewhere, read his quotes. It all gets absorbed and it gets distilled inside and comes out in different forms. When you see the word boundaries, what is the first thing that pops up in your mind? It could be the boundaries of our country. It could be the boundaries of the site or the house that we stay in, etc. But probably, if you just think, the first time you came across boundaries were when you were sitting in your mother's lap or your grandmother's lap, and they were telling you the Ramayana, and the instance when Lakshmana had to come and draw the Lakshman Rekha around the kutira where Sita and Rama were staying. And this was a boundary that Lakshmana put for Sita. So right from our childhood, this while okay, yeah. So while we are familiar with the concept of boundaries all along, do we actually practice it? even though it is so culturally ingrained into our minds, what is it that prevents us from following the concept of boundaries or limits, as Swami would have us say? Maybe this is a. All right. This is better. We have to wonder why it is that we do not follow this concept of boundaries in spite of it. When we eat food, don't we observe boundaries at times and don't observe boundaries at times? Okay? And at times we just eat as much as we want. At times we eat much more than what we want. Or what, whether it is eating or drinking, playing, working. So what is it that burdens us up and creates this dichotomy of sometimes wanting boundaries and sometimes not wanting boundaries? Eventually it comes down to greed. Whether it is with food, you can't resist what is there in the plate in front of you and you go ahead and eat. Or whether it is the desire to earn somebody's raise or the desire to earn more money that you end up overworking, you don't observe the limits there. So everywhere, it is a loss of control of our senses that makes us cross our boundaries. At the same time, when you make a boundary, it also makes us feel secure. So when we want the security, we choose boundaries. When we do not want the security, we don't choose boundaries. Okay. So there are both sides to it. But when it comes down to managing our desires, Swami has very clearly said that there have to be limits. The clearest recent example for all of us in Bangalore has been the problem with water. Right now, Swami has been kind enough that we are witnessing copious rain. But hardly 2 months back, we were all struggling for water. There was many of the borewells had dried up. We were paying for water all of a sudden. Why did that happen? It is because we were abusing nature. We were not paying heed to conservation of water. We were not paying heed to saving water, rain harvesting, so on and so forth. And we didn't have to suffer for it. So whenever nature is pushed to the limit, it hits back. And this is so fresh in our mind, and Swami has made it abundantly clear. Care should be exercised in providing comforts. Even if you look at excess comforts, it means you are somewhere you're taking away. You're taking away from nature. You're depleting our resources that we are on. It's back at us. So the concept of limits is something that we can learn very much from nature. Go ahead. So Swami has said, there's a limit for everything in this world. There is nothing without limit. In fact, the world is a limited company. What will happen to this limited company if it crosses its limits? Hence, everyone should conduct himself within his limits. So when a doctor prescribes a particular medicine to a patient, he also indicates the dosage. If the patient takes a medicine without regard to the dosage and exceeds the limit, he may contract another disease. It is necessary that he keeps his desires within limits. He will be put to great danger if he exceeds this limit out of his ego. Whether it's the individual or society or the world, all should observe the prescribed limits. Even a body follows certain limits, right? It keeps a certain temperature, 98.9, 98.8. And whenever it increases, then you are unwell. It's an indicator that the body is actually unwell. So the body observes limits, nature observes limits, but somewhere we lose control. and we stop observing the limits, which is what Swami tells us we have to be very careful about. Okay? Even the food is the most common example which I can think of to observe limits. If we eat too much carbohydrates, what happens to our tummy? It bloats up. You eat too much of protein, our kidneys fail. So obviously, the body is so much used to limits, and we are unable to discriminate, and we push these limits out of the way entirely because of greed. So, money is the most powerful motivator. It makes us forget all rules, all principles, and pushes us to actions, right or wrong, but pushes us eventually. And today, I just want to be speaking more about how we want to be managing money, how we should be managing our lives in the context of money, and of course, in the context of what Swami has told us. We cannot separate the two out. I've created three buckets: the earnings bucket, the spending bucket, and the savings bucket. And how do we then apply the ceiling or desires to all these? How do we apply what Swami has taught us in all these years to all these three buckets? Let's start with, I'm sorry, I keep pointing that way. Let's start with the earnings bucket. Earnings is what we earn as salary, profit, income, however you call it. There are two angles to this. The first angle is the quality of earnings. Swami has clearly said that of the four Purusharthas, Dharma is what should be guiding Artha. Righteousness is what should be guiding the way we earn wealth. So obviously, if I ask any of you, would you want to go steal money and earn? We'd all say no. So that's an extreme case. Definitely want to earn money the right way. But then in life, we come across many situations that seem to be grey. Stealing is a very extreme, we clearly say no. There may be times where there are inducements when you're working. Okay. And why is an inducement given to you? Because whoever is inducing you is wanting you to do something out of your normal righteous way. It is for you to recognize that it's an inducement and avoid it. So whether at work, whether in business, these situations can arise where somebody maybe wants to come and bribe because they want to get something done. The bribe could be in form of money, which you will say no. The bribe could be in some other tangible form, which doesn't look like a bribe, but it's an inducement. So if these are the things that you're able to discriminate and say no, you will be maintaining your righteous path. The more you give in to these temptations or inducements, remember you will be losing your command. Swami clearly says, if you lose morality, you lose command. And the more you get into that rut, the more you will have to keep giving in to these repeatedly. So do not bend the dharma to suit you whenever it is convenient for you to earn money. So this is about the quality of earnings. Can you think there's a quantity angle to it? I mean, should there be a limit to what we are earning? Why not? Let it be infinite. As much as we can earn, as much as we can get money, as much as we can profit, let us profit. Isn't it? No. Let's get back to the food angle. Okay? Do we take more food than we can eat? We serve as much food as we want. So this is as much as we want. We can figure out how much our stomach can take, and we take only that much food. Why not money? Money also you can. It's a very difficult notion to think that let us earn only as much as we need. Adi Shankara has something very interesting to say about this. Right. This is from the Bhajan Govindam of which Adi Shankara says, "O fool, This is the English translation, of course. Give up excessive desire for wealth. Yoke your mind to the good and the pure, and cultivate detachment. Whatever wealth you obtain by your own honest labor, with that learn to delight your mind and heart. So he says clearly that there is something called excessive wealth. And if you run after excessive wealth, you're only going to be a fool. Adi Shankar has been very clear. He's saying you're fools if you're running after excessive wealth. Limit yourself because there's a cost to it. When you run after excessive wealth, you don't realize you're compromising somewhere else. You're giving up something else. Because the wealth does not come easy. You're working for it. You're working in the righteous manner. I grant you that. But you're going to be spending more time, more effort. Are you going to be running your body down earlier? Are you going to be spending less time with family? Are you going to be compromising on relationships? All these are the side effects of trying to run and earn excess wealth, which eventually are the ones that give you happiness. One doesn't realize it now, but as it is said, own experience is the most expensive tuition fee. By the time you finish learning out of your own experience, your life is past. So you might as well listen to what others, the gurus, have to tell us out of their experience, and you can do a shortcut there. That's what I do. I have. Yes. Swami says here, today our lives are tainted by a desire for wealth. Wealth makes a man intoxicated and mad. Money is necessary, but it must have a limit. Excessive money can be harmful to the mind. It is more difficult to spend money than to earn it. It is even more difficult to take care of money. And I know the business of managing money for people. And when people have large amounts of money to be protected and saved, I can see the stress in their lives. I can see the tension in their faces. Until they are able to get detached from it, they don't sleep. They're looking at the news every minute. They're looking at the business papers every minute and figuring out, am I making money today or am I losing money today? Till their families get fed up. So when Swami says it is even more difficult to take care, that's true. Very much true. The only way people have excess wealth and can be peaceful is when they're completely detached. And one can imagine that if they're detached from their wealth in the first place, they were never attached to it at any point of time. The wealth came in because their purpose, their focus was elsewhere. When your focus is not on making money, Swami gives you money. When your focus is on doing whatever you do very well, whatever. So if you're following a profession and you're following that profession to the T, you're benefiting society somewhere. Don't forget that. And if your focus is on that kind of perfection, wealth comes in, which is what Swami also tells us. Previous one, please. Go back. Yeah. Previous one. So interestingly, there was a survey conducted by some very eminent researchers, including Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner on economics and behavioral finance. And they were trying to figure out whether more money creates more happiness. And this was a study conducted over many years across thousands of people in the US. And they tried to figure out if they earn more money, are they happier? What do you think the result was? No. They found that till a certain level, happiness and money were hand in hand. And after a certain level, the money didn't matter anymore, the happiness plateaued. Even if they had more wealth, if they are earning more wealth, the happiness plateaued. It clearly says, yeah, more wealth does not mean more happiness. So why are we running after excess wealth? This was 2003 study, which one should keep in mind always. And those who were in any case happy were happy with any amount of wealth. It did not matter to them whether it was below the $100,000 limit which the study found or above the $100,000 limit which the study found. They were anyway happy. So you can imagine that their levels of contentment were quite different. So the conclusion here it says very clearly, while the link between income and happiness is real, it's modest and conditional. We must be careful not to overemphasize money's role in happiness. Happiness is a complex topic involving various factors, money being just one of them. Genetics, health, relationships, leisure time, and purpose likely matter more for well-being than dollars alone. Yet, if used wisely, money can enhance our sense of well-being and improve our lives. So, this is not a philosopher writing this. There's a set of scientists who have written this. There's a set of economists who have written this. So, even if one were to go away from the spiritual frame of mind and look at clear logic, logic is saying the same thing. Don't run after excess wealth, it is of no use. It is not going to create any further happiness for you. Swami only says, if you are able to control your desires, you will achieve peace. As long as the desires are running around, no way. Let's come to the expenses part of it. How do we deal with expenses? Okay. So let me get down to a little bit of the logic here before getting to the spiritual angle of expenses. The process to it. How many of you are earning now or not students? Quite a few of you are earning. So the moment the money comes into your bank account, then what do? Spend it, save it, or share it. You could be doing any of these three. Alright. The trouble really happens when we are unable to figure out how much to spend, where to spend, how to spend. And the common malady I find is that we spend too much. What we spend is not going to productive uses. It could be of course, all spending is materialistic. But then some of it would be wasteful expenditure. So the method to do this is to first budget yourself. Okay. One would normally think that we get our income, we spend, and the rest of it is saving. No. It has to be the reverse. You figure out how much you want to save, and only the balance you should be spending. Alright? All of us do the reverse. We spend at the end of the month, if something is left, we save it. That's a passive way. But if you want to keep control, if you want to be actively managing your finances, then first you figure out how much you want to save. How much you want to save is dependent on what you need for the future. You all have goals, you all have milestones. You have to plan for it, figure out what you need, and save and spend only the balance. Okay. The budget also includes what is your spending list. It's a good habit to write down. I think the women folk are a little more careful at that, at the exercise of budgeting, more detailed, more organized. Okay? But it's not hard for the men folk to do it either. I have a client who can go back to the 1980s and pick out his diary and say exactly how much he has spent every day, how much on bus fare, how much on vegetables, and how much on XYZ. Okay, it is a habit. It's just a discipline, which all of us can inculcate very easily. Eventually, that is what creates wealth. Discipline. And here you are able to write down everything, and then secondly, you should be able to prioritize. Can you figure out what is important in your list of spending and what is not important? And only spend on what is important. The entire issue is when you're spending and you're walking on a street, you see something, you get tempted to buy it. And if there's money in your pocket, you go and buy it. You're not thinking budget, you're not thinking savings, you're not thinking all this I'm talking about. Your senses take over, the temptation takes over, and money is there in your pocket. And today it's worse, you don't need cash, you need all your mobile phone, GPay or whatever. So we don't even understand how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. We don't have a sense of counting the notes or counting, which gives us a better sense of, if you're giving out a bundle of notes, you say, oh my Lord, what am I doing? Here you're pressing a button and saying pay. So we lost control in a sense through the digital method. This entire psychology of us giving into temptation, buying, is called instant gratification. You're given to that. You want something, buy it immediately, satisfy yourself, walk on. The problem is, it never stops. You buy one, then you want to buy the next one, and you want to buy the third one, and the fourth one never stops, never stops. So then you end up spending all that you have, and then the worst part, you may even borrow and spend. Again, borrowing was so easy. You take out your credit card, you swipe it, and say, do you want to pay the EMI? Somebody asks you, you say yes. No. Do you realize how much you're paying as interest cost? Do you realize you're paying 30% per annum for that? To use that credit card, borrow and spend for some wasteful expenditure. So, instant gratification, if we can get away from that, you solve half your problem. Even children, as parents, those of you who are parents here, can understand. The child asks for something, you immediately satisfy the child. You want a chocolate? Here, buy this chocolate. You want a doll? You want a game? Here, buy it. So what does the child get used to? Instant gratification. Ask for it and it shall be delivered. Exactly what is happening with Amazon. You ask for it and it gets delivered. Alright? That is a challenge. And that is a control of the senses which Swami continuously is being hammering into us. Whatever way you look at it, however you look at it, it comes down back to it. Control your desires. Okay? So, what Swami is saying here? We think we are becoming happy by satisfying our desires. It's only a false, it's an illusion that we are becoming happy. Because that happiness ceases. Then you want to be happy again. Then you latch on to the next desire, thinking that will make you happy. It's never ending. Swami says it's like a bonfire which continuously needs to be fed with wood for the fire to roar, the fire of desire. Comes down to only that. So when you are looking at satisfying your happiness through buying one item after another, it's like running on a treadmill. You don't go anywhere actually. You think you're running, but actually you're not going anywhere. And eventually you get tired and fall off. And Swami describes it in a very nice manner. He says chasing your desire is like chasing your own shadow. It makes a fool of you. You keep running, you never catch your shadow. Because sun is behind you and you're running ahead. Very so beautiful. Swami puts all these front of us, try and make and understand that keep your desires away. Wherever you look today, there will be desires, and more. Put a ceiling on these desires. Only then will your mind become steady. You say, I want this, I want that. First, you may develop many wants. They are like passing clouds. Why would you want to multiply your wants is passing clouds? Ultimately, nothing accompanies you at the time of leaving the mortal body. In one of his discourses, Swami said, he would allude to Alexander very often, and when Alexander wanted to go ahead and conquer the world, his guru, Plato and Socrates, Plato told, Why do you want to go and conquer the world? When you die, you are not going to take this world with you. Gives us a clue. What is excess? If you cannot take something with you, that is excess. If you are going to be earning lakhs and millions and crores of rupees in a lifetime, but cannot carry that with us when we die, that is excess. Swami has said that, Adi Shankara has said that, it needs to get into our heads. What is it that we can carry with us? What is it that we can carry with us? Anything? Any answers? Yes, please. Baba's grace. That is something we can carry with us. Good karma. Isn't it? So that is where we have to be spending time. That is where we have to be spending our effort. Not earning wealth which we can't carry, which is excess wealth. Now let's come into the savings bucket of it. So what is it that you are doing here? But before I come here, I'd just like to move back one step on this. You all have your paper and pen. Can you make a list of your desires? Okay, not enough. Please supply more paper. And with all that list, can you make it into two parts? Needs and wants. Go ahead, please take 3 minutes. Out of all that you want, all that you desire, yes, absolutely, based on your life stage. Yeah. So you are in a certain life stage now. Your needs would be different from your neighbor's needs. Okay, so yeah, yes. So there, are you going to allow instant gratification for the kids? Correct. 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 Yeah. Correct. Very true. So what sister is saying, at different stages of our life, our list of needs will be varying. Sorry. For them to. Yeah. The list of needs will be varying. Okay. At some point of time, you are thinking of your children, and then your needs are planning for the children's education. What is the money that we need for the education? That is a need, isn't it? So for some, that is not a need. For others, that is a need. And once the children are grown up, that is no longer a need. But there's something else which could come in as a need. But buying them a car when they enter college, is that a need or a want? See? Yeah. Actually, that mic would be helpful. Not able to hear. Yeah. That will not reach. Yeah, cordless mic. Cordless mic. For her to be not able to listen. Please.
We can't decide right now. At that time, after 10, 15 years, car is the luxury or it's a necessity.
Okay. So, why worry so much about the future? As on today, what does it seem to be? Can we figure out what is the future? Some things we can figure out. We know we want the kids educated. We want them to go to college, right? So what we know, look for it. That is a need. That's a basic need to give them a college education.
The rest all are necessary.
It is contextual, it is subjective. So if it is contextual, if it is subjective, it is not in the needs list. It would be in the wants list. It is in your list of priorities, it would go to the other sheet, not your first priority. So if you say you have the choice of saving for education, buying a home for yourself, and saving for a car for the child. So there's a difference, right? Would you save for a car instead of buying a home, which you don't have? Home. So the home is a need. Suddenly, when you're looking at it relatively, you can figure out that there are certain things which are clearly needs and the other things are wants. And that helps you separate the two and plan better. If you confuse the two, then your budget becomes very large. And then what are you doing? You're running on the treadmill. Or you're overworking yourself, which may not be a necessity. Or you may compromise in the hope of earning money, but then you're losing out on your karma. The problem that we face as youngsters, not only as youngsters, even as older people, when it comes to spending and acquiring gadgets, somewhere it is peer pressure. Okay. Just because our friends or relations have something, we also want to have the same. Why? It's a projection of our ego. Actually. So, if you're able to recognize that, bring the ego down, which is one of the most difficult things. It's easier said than done, we all know that. But by dedicating ourselves, by indulging in seva, engaging in seva, that is the best way to get an ego down. Then no longer will you be under any peer pressure. Once you're not into that game of peer pressure, buying whatever your neighbor has, buying whatever your friend has, then suddenly you discover that you become very functional. If you, instead of buying a new phone every time, are you saying, is my phone working? Can I make a call from this? As long as I can make a call from it, you use it. I'm not figuring out whether somebody else has got a better phone and go ahead and spend a lakh on that. So eventually when you come down to functionality, you also come down to peace. Your mind is not occupied with desires, continuously as to, and no distraction. You become better at your work the moment there's no distraction. And who knows, you become better at your work, you get more wealth. When you don't ask for wealth, Swami gives you wealth. You focus on what is doing good, productive, and that is what works. In terms of, Swami was, when he said his life is his message, he actually lived it, he meant it, every breath, every word he meant it. And one of the persons who was so close to Swami for most of his life was Mrs. Ratanlal. You all heard. Mrs. Ratanlal would cook food for Swami every day for how many years? Many, many years. She probably had the kind of access to Swami that many other devotees did not have. There's one instance that she mentions. Swami was in Vrindavan and on his way back to Parthi. For some reason, Mrs. Ratanlal had a doubt and asked Swami, is your mattress okay? Is your mattress okay? Swami said, all fine, because he would just cover up the mattress when Mrs. Ratanlal walked in. After he left, she walked into his room, removed the mattress and discovered the mattress had a huge hole in the middle. So when Swami left, he put a pillow there, covered it with a bedsheet and went in. And he was sleeping, curling his back around the hole in the mattress. That is how careful Swami was. That is the kind of simplicity that he exhibited, that he made. So that is the simplicity which he wants us to follow. That is the kind of care and value to money that he wants us to give. He was extremely careful. Whenever these large programs would happen at Parthi, he was very, very careful as to how each rupee was being spent.
It had to be accounted to him. He had to agree to it. And even a few rupees more, and he would say, no, not required. Whose money do you think this is? It's a devotee's money. So he was very, very careful. That is one more angle we need to think of which Swami showed us. We are actually a trustee. Whatever we have is really not ours. If he's given us something, it is he who has given us. And we are supposed to safeguard it till we leave the body. That's all. So we are a trustee. So if he's giving us money, we have to take care of that money. If he's giving us any kind of resource, we have to take care of that resource and protect that resource. That is what Swami would want us to do. Okay. So when it comes to savings also, the primary or the guiding principle is don't waste money. The Swami says, God is wealth. Since God is wealth, misuse of money is evil. Practice charity by gifting away money, food, clothes, houses, instead of misusing money in extravagance. And he says, clearly misusing money is a sin. If a child misuses money, it is not a sin because the child is ignorant. But when we as adults, who are educated, who are knowledgeable, misuse money, it's clearly a sin. Even though we know it is wrong, we do it. Even though we know it is wrong, we give in to our senses, cross our limits, cross boundaries, and give in to indulgence. Those are all sins. If you think of Sita, who represents wealth, isn't it? Sita is a goddess who was born of the earth, represents wealth. And when Lakshmana drew the boundary around the house, what was he doing? He was protecting wealth. And I think that is what we have to also imbibe. Across the yugas, what is he telling us? Protect your wealth. Safeguard your wealth. Don't misuse it. It is a message that Lakshmana has been giving us and we should be looking at. When it comes to savings also, what are you saving for? You need to have goals, like sister was mentioning. You need money for sending children to college, you need money to buy a basic shelter, you need money to retire. Okay. If you hunger for much more, then you're losing your peace of mind. The problem with losing peace of mind is you get distracted from the spiritual path. The fact that all of you are here in this hall, you want to be on the spiritual path. You've made up your mind that you want to be on the spiritual path. Then what are the distractions? If you know what are the distractions, you can avoid it. So running after excess wealth is a distraction. Desires, wanting material possessions are distractions, and they can eventually move you away from the path. So when it comes to savings also, you need to be having a balance. If you're going to be too greedy in your savings, you might end up losing your money. You think smart people don't lose money? They do. Even smart people give in to temptation. So one of these stories that I like to often talk about is Isaac Newton, one of the smartest people we knew, right? One of the greatest scientists that we've had. Do you know that he lost a lot of money in scams? 1710, 1720, a company was formed in the UK called the South Sea Company, which had an agreement with the government, and they had exclusive rights to do slave trade with the islands of South of America. The South Sea trade, which was supposed to be a very profitable trade. And the shares of the company started going up because people thought it would make a lot of profit. And eventually, not only was a profit not happening in the company, the promoters wanted to dress up the balance sheet and showed the wrong things, the wrong results. The stock price went up, went on and on and on. And people made a lot of money, not realizing that actually what was there was nothing. It was a coca, it was an empty shell. Newton also invested a lot of his money. He was wealthy. Newton was already wealthy because of controller of the mint. That was a title given to him by the government. And as it went up, he sold and booked gains. But the stock price went on going up. Greed overtook. Says, oh my God, if I'd stayed invested, I would have made more money. He went back and put all his money in. And from there, it crashed 100 times. It became zero. What he lost in terms of today's wealth would be about 20 million pounds. He gave in to greed. So even smart people give in to greed. The only thing that keeps us sane is listening to Swami. Nothing else can keep us sane. And today also, when you want to save money, when you want to invest money, you have multiple options, right? You can leave money in a bond. You can buy property. You can buy equity in the stock market. All these options are there. But the route to making wealth is never smooth. It is a discipline that matters. So when you think something is very good, you go ahead and invest excess. That is a problem. So there have to be limits. There have to be boundaries. And you do not cross that. That is the discipline which you put to yourself. This is all that I will invest in property. This is all that I will invest in equity. Whatever happens to the market, how much ever it goes up, do not get greedy and put in more. This is the kind of balance that will create wealth for you without you losing your sanity. Everywhere it is limits, everywhere it is boundaries that comes in. So wealth has to be saved. Does it have to be hoarded? Saving as different from hoarding. Because Swami says wealth has to flow. Lakshmi has to flow. It has to be available for everybody. It has to go, only then the economy is kept alive. Just like with blood in our body. If the blood is not flowing, the body dies. Money has to flow. Don't hoard it. That is a very important message. And he used to say, Swami in his discourses, wealth has to be like a shoe. It has to fit right. If the shoe is big, you cannot walk. If the shoe is small, your feet pain. Very simply, Swami would put, wealth is exactly that. Don't have excess, don't have less. Find your balance and keep at it. So, equanimity is a virtue which Swami would want us to have. So whether you're making a lot of money or losing money, keep your mind at the same state. Equanimous. Then you don't get bowled over into doing wrong things. Okay. So, this is a chart which I show to people at times when people want to come and invest. He said, make time your friend. The longer that you allow the money to grow, the magic called compounding happens. Okay. Compounding is what, as you earn, it gets reinvested. It is interest on interest, interest on interest, and it keeps on piling up as you give time. In the initial years, it doesn't seem to be doing much. But suddenly in the later years, you see that it shoots up exponentially. That is the impact of compounding. And that is why I say, and this happens after 10, 15 years of being invested, which means you have to make time your friend and don't get distracted in between. Once you impose your discipline on you, make time your friend, you should be able to not get distracted and focus on your sadhana. That is what is the message here. Saving is excess if you're not sharing it. So giving has to be a very important part of whatever you do. See, eventually, first you earn money, okay, and you figure out what you want to do with your needs. That gives you a sense of security. Once you have that sense of security, your mind is at peace. Your mind is at peace, it expands and begins to think of other things, better things, higher things. And eventually, when you are able to share what you have with the community, is when it is called well-being. It is beyond peace. So you need to reach that stage. So sharing is a critical part of managing your money. If you don't start with saying, I want to share, you'll never reach that state of well-being. So So Swami says be happy. But happy, can you see what is different in this happy? The three P's, right? If it's like an evolution, as you move from one P to the second P to the third P. The first P is pleasure. Pleasure. Okay. What pleasures we get out of spending, of owning material. The next P is when you are able to control your desires, move away from them, then you get peace of mind. That is second P is peace. The third P is when you find purpose. Eventually, when you find purpose in what you're doing and realize why you're here on earth, then you're free of everything else. And that is true happiness. So you have to go way beyond wealth to get true happiness. And that is what Swami is telling us here. That brings me to the end of my session. Any questions? Lot of questions. Yeah, please. Yes, ma'am.
Saira,
Right now.
the session was very, very good, sir. I just wanted to ask, most of the time, our pleasure is to keep our kids happy. And when in that process, what we do as parents is we get them what they want. We don't want to see them sad or crying at any point in time in our life. As long as we are alive, we want to see our kids happy. Is what everybody's thought is. So when we do that, as you told, we are creating an unnecessary disaster. How to control it? And is there any measure that we can take, or how to go ahead about it?
Thank you. Yes, as a parent, we always want to see the children happy and joyful. But if you think that joy today needs sorrow tomorrow, will you do it? So how are we training the children? We are training the children for sorrow tomorrow if you are giving into all their desires today. Swami would also put all his devotees to that role, right? Severe training, severe disciplining before the grace came. The same way you have to be with your children. How do you manage this is delayed gratification, not instant gratification. Can you do the reverse of delayed gratification? Instead of today, shall we do tomorrow? Shall we buy you this chocolate tomorrow? And whether it is an adult or a child, by the time you allow the time to pass, the desire disappears. You do that repeatedly, you will not yield to temptation. You train your child also not to give in to temptation. Children are very simple, They say, okay, shall we do it later on? Okay, fine. And then desire is lost. Three years. Questions.
Okay, before I ask my question, and just building on what you said, there was an experiment conducted several decades back in the US where they had a bunch of children sitting in a classroom and they kept one marshmallow in front of every child and said, if you don't eat that marshmallow for 30 minutes, you will get a second marshmallow. So you have a choice. So some kids ate, some kids waited. And then they tracked that whole group for the next 50 years and found that those who waited did much better in life than those children who instantly wanted to eat it. So I thought I'll just share that experiment which happened.
That has a very powerful lesson.
Yeah.
That if you are able to delay gratifications,
Delayed. And also, in terms of earnings, I think at least my understanding of what Swami said is that you should work for it. It should not come to you free. Now, in that context, how would you view an investment in stock market? I'm not doing anything. I'm just putting money there and I get a return.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So, as a trustee of the wealth that you have, you're supposed to protect that wealth. That is the job as a trustee, not allow it to deteriorate. So, what are the options in front of you which will protect your money from inflation? By doing nothing, inflation will make it depreciate, purchasing power reduces. So the options that you have are possibly buying property, putting it in the stock market. Okay. When you're investing in the stock market, is it gambling? Is it speculation? Then it's a no-no. But if you have studied it and you are buying part of a business, okay, so that you profit out of the business's growth, which is a logical train, and it is going to into productive use only. The money that you're investing into the stock market, you're creating the capital market, which is allowing the economy to grow, for businesses to flourish, and in turn, prosperity for the nation. So one, I believe it's a productive thing, as long as it's not speculation, where you're irrationally speculating, playing a game of chance, which I would say no, it's out of the radar. So buying, investing into the stock market, yes, you are fulfilling your dharma as the trustee of the wealth and making it grow. At the same time, it is productive as long as it is not speculative. There's a science behind it.
we probably have a separate chat.
Second,
Science.
I have a question. At what point does financial security in terms of future savings for the future become an illusion? So I see that as and when the salary increases, the needs and wants kind of remain the same. They increase slowly, not that much. So you save for the future. But then when does the enough part come?
Lovely question. Lovely question. So your concept of enough today would change with time as your earning capacity goes. It's a very fine line, I think, where you are going into an excess territory. But shifting your goalpost, what you're saying is you're going to be shifting your goalpost. What does that happen? You keep on exercising and you don't reach, and eventually the stress pulls you down. So you have to be able to discriminate and saying, am I doing enough of the other parts? Am I sharing what I have? If I have excess, then I'm shifting my goalpost. But am I also at the same time doing good for the community? Fulfill all your duties. And then maybe you can think of shifting your goalpost. But remember that whenever you shift your goalpost, you are putting yourself under stress. Any questions?
Sir, I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
So, like we are in different phases of life, right? So people say you need to plan things, but as you rightly said that you may never know how things will come. And they try to plan things, but they facing that they have to start investing different markets. But there is a possibility that if you see the great crisis, everything came down. So we don't have control over things. But how do we come up? Like there's a stages where nothing is there, but there's again global before COVID. How do we maintain that equanimity? That okay, if paisa gaya bhai, zindagi hai. So how do we maintain it? That's actually realistic because I've seen people who have lost it because they have put all their money and they've seen boss आज 25 crore तक कुछ नहीं है. But that's the reality. But how do we make sure that we keep ourselves safe and make sure that people who are there with us should also be like confident that nothing will happen to them on that too.
Yeah, wonderful question. And this is based on what we have actually seen in the last few years, isn't it, brother? So that is where you use the word all, the term all. That means there are no boundaries. If you're able to put a limit, as I will invest 30% of my wealth in the stock market, your 60-70% is there, no? In terms of, even when there's a crisis. And crises do happen. Wars happen, economic crises happen, when stock markets, which are slave to it, can fall. If you did not need the money at that time, you don't have to sell.
Okay.
You retain your balance of mind. If your desires are well contained, you will not be disturbed by it. If your living is a simple living, you will not get disturbed by it. And of course, in the underlying, you should know that remaining invested, eventually you will recover. Okay. You should be able to get through that bad phase of 3 years or 4 years. You can go through that bad phase without being worried if you have enough investments in some other place. So that is diversification.
Perfect.
Okay. That is creating the buckets that you allude to and putting limits.
Okay, the banking crisis which happened where the IT company, the startup which failed,
Yes.
because it had only invested in particular set of.
Correct.
And one more thing, brother, this one thing on this venture part is that Swami says that like when you invest in any stock, the karma which has that company has, that also comes. Probably Shrikant Service was telling this. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, great one. So there is something called ethical investing. Okay, how do you earn your money? The quality of the earnings is also important. What you're saying is the quality of the earning is important. If you're making your money out of an illegal business, the karma is going to come on to you. Right? So I do think where you invest matters. That is my personal opinion.
But we will never know what is happening in the world, right? Like, what?
All right. So you may find misdemeanors happening within the management of a company that is not in your control. But the decision to invest, say, in a meat manufacturing company, for example, the decision to invest in an alcohol producing company, that is in your control.
Agree.
So within your sphere of control, if you're still taking that decision, then you're going against your heart.
Okay. Understood.
Those decisions you can separate. You can't control everything in the world, but you can control your own decisions.
Which company that fund is investing in.
Yes.
So then what happens?
Correct. That's a complex question because when you are making the investment, your intent is not to invest in a company that is earning out of unethical winners. Okay. It is left to somebody else to do it. So you are distanced from the decision. The decision is not yours at all of where to invest.
See, I don't think there could be many situations where the decision is mine, though the intent is pure.
Yeah.
I have no clue that the company is involved in some fraud. And only after that comes out, I get, not many times it will never come out also. So for example, I don't know if we can take names, if you take ICICI Bank, there's so many millions of invested in it, and suddenly one fraud comes out that they gave this and people get arrested and all that. So then what happens? Otherwise it's supposed to be a good company and doing well, whatever. In our day-to-day dealings with them, they're ethical and stuff like that. But there's something else happening at different levels over which we don't have any control.
Yeah. So that, say a fraud has happened or a misdemeanor has happened in that institution or a business where you have invested, has it resulted in unethical earnings for the institution? Because you are profiting from that. How are you profiting from it? There, dharma plays a role. So I gave the example of, say, tobacco or alcohol or meat. If you're directly investing in a business which engages in that, you may not be happy or peaceful living off the profits of that. Okay. But a corruption or a fraud that happens there will not result in bad karma sticking to you. Whoever has committed the fraud is the one who's bearing the bad karma.
No, I'm just extending what he said. If you invest in a company, then the karma of the company gets attached to it. In that context, I'm asking because karma by definition is agnostic to intent, as per my understanding. If I hurt someone, whether I intended to hurt or not, but karma accrues to me. So I'm just looking at it in that context. In the event the karma of the organization I invest in it gets attached to me, then my intent of investing in that organization is not relevant at all.
Yes, I agree with you. So the intent of the organization where you are investing also, okay, what is the intent there? Illegal activity, unethical activity, then you don't want to be associated with it clearly. In that sense. And suppose you're going into a mutual fund. Suppose you're investing in a mutual fund where you don't have control on the decisions. You have ethical mutual funds, which only invest in ethical businesses. Choose those. Then you're very clear on what you're
The
doing.
point I'm making is they're ethical until you get to know that they're not these days.
Yes, yes.
So that's the
Where do you draw the line? Because even if you put the money in a bank deposit, if that bank is indulging in some corrupt activity, it's the same. So there somewhere the intent matters. Okay. Even if you keep then your savings under the mattress, what are you doing to it? You are destroying the wealth, which is not what again Dharma would want as a trustee. Complex one.
complex matter.
It's okay. Shall we end? Okay. Well, thank you for patiently listening to me. Sitting right for you.
Thank you, Shrikant sir, for your extremely valuable speech. Your insights are something I will definitely remember and be mindful of. I think we have all understood the importance of keeping our desires under control, differentiating between our needs and wants, and of course, managing our finances wisely. I now request Suman sir, convener of JP Nagar Samithi, to please give the token of love to Shrikant sir.
ॐ श्री साई भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबाय नमः।